Up next is Dar Numan, which I can't let you come on stage till you tell me if you're related to Gary Numan. No? You are? I need to meet him before you can come on stage. I'm sorry. Okay, Dar Numan, ladies and gentlemen.
I used to get a kick out of going to Northern Lights Music to buy his albums, and the clerk would look at the album I was buying, look at my check, and double take. So, I am Dar. My story is set in a parallel universe that's very, very near us in the multiverse, and so has a real similar history, but dissimilar enough that I can take some writer's privilege. In my universe, sorcerers and wizards exist. Sorcerers are magic, and therefore are ageless. They're not immortal. Wizards just do magic. They're long-lived, but even less close to immortal. A little closer? Okay. So I hope you heard all that. The Conclave had recognized the effects of industrialization on the world at large far longer than the members of the modern scientific community. The evidence was incontrovertible, unless of course you were scientists paid to controvert it. As annualized temperatures continued to rise and the glacial sheets began to recede, things locked in the ice for millennia were loosed. Greenhouse gases, frozen in the earth under the ice sheets, began to evaporate into the atmosphere and accelerated the warming process. Bacteria and viruses unknown in human history reclaimed their position in the chain of life, and doorways, purposely locked and hidden from the knowledge of men, became accessible again. Excerpt, Annals of the Conclave of Wizardry, 2009. Chapter 1. The first golden rays of sunshine were just beginning to peek up over the treetops. I had heard gnomes in the garden during the night, and the dawn would take care of any nasty hexes they may have placed on the tomatoes. Gnomes really seemed to dislike tomatoes. It was late in the year to still have tomatoes, but it had been a long, warm autumn. Regardless, hexes cannot withstand the cleansing power of those first gleaming rays of morning light. So if you have garden gnomes, don't go into your garden before the sunlight has touched it. Gnome hexes aren't dangerous, just very uncomfortable. My mornings are spent in my oversized kitchen with good strong coffee and surfing the net. I like my coffee light and sweet. Some tell me that ruins the coffee. I disagree. My kitchen faces east, and a bank of windows runs along the entire outer wall of the kitchen. I enjoy looking out on the lawn while cooking and doing dishes. A large island dominates the center of the kitchen with an inset sink and enough cupboards to store all of my cookware. 4 stools are lined up along the edge farthest from the window. Along the windowed wall is my cooktop and range, a second sink, and a low row of countertops with more cupboards built in beneath them. Nothing above the countertops so that I have a clear view. Did I mention I like the view? I had sausages sizzling in a frying pan on the back burner, nearly ready, and the aroma of fennel seed and maple permeated the air. I had just cracked a couple of duck eggs into another pan. The shells of duck eggs are thicker and harder than chicken eggs. The phone began to ring. At 5 past sunrise, and it better not be a telemarketer. I walked over and picked up the receiver. Ben Harley, I said into the mouthpiece. Good morning, Mr. Holly. This is Terence Valentine, said a low, cultured voice from the speaker. I could never quite place the origin of his accent, but it was something Western European, perhaps Belgian. I hope I haven't called too early, he continued. Well, Mr. Valentine, you know that I'm an early riser, but I was just finishing up some important business. Can I call you back in a half an hour? I looked at the caller ID. It was blank. I'm afraid that this is a rather pressing matter, Mr. Harley. If we could arrange a meeting, I would appreciate it. I was planning on being in Minneapolis tomorrow. Shall I drop by your shop, I asked? No. This business will require the most stringent confidentiality. I believe that we should meet in my private office. Also, soonest would be preferred, I answered. I glanced at the stove to see what was happening in the frying pans. The phone was too far from the stove for me to really see the condition of breakfast. I motioned Vuk towards the stove. As he neared it, I whispered, "Le you," and I was looking through Vuk's eyes. It didn't look too bad, Dad. "I guess I could come into Minneapolis today instead," I said to Mr. Valentine. "Where would you like to meet?" He paused momentarily. "Please meet me in the Crystal Court at the Ideas Center in an hour. The client is willing to pay for expedience," he replied. "Well, if I leave now, I can beat the morning commute and be there. Can you give me an idea what this is about?" "I'm afraid that my instructions are quite clear about methods of communication in this matter. I will see you in an hour," and the line went silent. Terence Valentine was many things, but discourteous was so far removed from his usual behavior that I was stunned. I looked quizzically at the phone receiver before replacing it into the cradle. I had planned to spend the day preparing for Samhain, but none of my preparations were so pressing that they wouldn't wait until tomorrow. As I walked back to the stove, I realized that breakfast was ruined. The egg yolks were cooked solid, and the whites were so brown around the edges that I knew that they would crunch between my teeth. The sausages were blackened on the bottom, and the smoke rising from the frying pan overwhelmed the previously enticing aroma. I glanced over to the island in the middle of the kitchen. Vuk was sitting on the counter, holding his nose and fanning his tiny hand in front of his face. "Vuk," he said reproachfully. "Yeah," I replied, "I know what you mean. When will I learn to let early morning calls go straight to voicemail?" Vuk is a homunculus. I created him while I was living in France before the revolution. He's just less than 2 feet tall and is completely covered in fur, except for his hands. Normally, his fur is solid white, but he can change his color, the color of his fur, to match whatever he is standing in front of, except paisley. I forbid him from doing paisley. His ears are tiny and round like a teddy bear. His prehensile tail is 2 feet long, and he uses it as deftly as he does his hands. His blue eyes are almost too large for his face and very, very expressive. As part of the ritual of creation, I invested a portion of my life force into his body, and so he and I are always aware of each other. He speaks only one word, but he still manages to communicate everything with just that one word. I scraped the ruined food into the trash can and started darting about the house, assembling a few things I might need. I was going to meet Valentine and then run a few errands that I had planned on doing tomorrow, so I wouldn't need a staff or any weapons. But I never leave the house without a wand. I walked to the middle of the hallway. The walls look completely smooth, but I know it isn't. I had created a hidden panel in the wall. I'm a big fan of J.R.R. Tolkien, and giving a nod to the Fellowship of the Ring, I need only speak friend to open it. Since all of my vocal magic is tied to the language of my youth, I said, "Ami," and a panel appeared in the wall and slid open. Behind the panel is a gun safe with an electronic keypad. I use it to store my wands. I entered the combination, opened the safe, and looked over the selections of wands that I had created. There are 5. Each one specializes in a particular flavor of magic. I selected the ivory and willowwood wand. If I were expecting trouble, I would have grabbed the forged steel and diamond wand, but for a leisurely trip to Minneapolis, I didn't expect to need the heavy guns. I stuffed my wallet and keys into pockets and stood in front of the mirror. I realized that I hadn't showered yet. My jet black baby hair was tousled, and in need of a wash, and my nearly black beard was just beginning to get scraggly. My beard is pretty thick, and if I don't keep it in check, I look like a mountain man. Of course, in the early 1800s, I was a mountain man and made fairly good money trapping and trading in fur. Since then, my ideas on animal treatment have changed radically. I became an evolved human. I'm not a vegan, but I try to ensure that all the animal products that I use are from the most humane sources available. Just before the gold rush of 1849, I had staked a claim in the mountains of Montana, and that was when I really became a wealthy man. In the mine, I discovered most of the platinum group of metals, as well as gold and silver. There is also an abundance of chrysoberyl. I have found 8 different colors and 6 colors of cat's eye. I love my mine. What am I doing for time? Beard first. I grabbed my beard trimmer and started in. Very dark brown eyes peered back at me from the mirror. Sometimes it's difficult to see where my pupils end and my irises begin. My nose is a little broader and longer than my face can really accommodate. My complexion is as fair as a redhead's, but I never get sunburned, no matter how much time I spend in the sun. Overall, it's difficult to pinpoint my heritage. I know that my mother is Irish, but I've never known my father. I was born in the Brittany region of France in 1722, and even with the strong Catholic influence there, my mother maintained her Celtic upbringing and raised me to honor the Tuatha De Danann. I'm fairly average. I stand about 5'7" and weigh 160 pounds. I'm a metalsmith now, working with steel and precious metals, and my arms and broad chest are strong. The rest of my physique is average. I jumped in the shower and got the water almost too hot and made it a quick wash. After I toweled off, I went to the closet to find something appropriate to wear for meeting one of my more important business contacts. I do custom jewelry for Mr. Valentine, whose main jewelry store is on Nicollet Mall in Minneapolis. It is from his commissions that I keep my goldsmithing skills honed. But most of my business is in custom dress weapons for LARPers who enjoy sword and sorcery themes. I find most of my customers by attending from 4 to 6 Renaissance festivals a year. I have a private chuckle at the sorcerers and wizards. LARPers haven't a clue what a real magician is like. I grabbed a pair of black dress slacks out of the closet, as well as a pale blue shirt with a button-down collar. I chose a tie with a small blue pattern and black dress shoes and belt. I slid the belt through the loop of my wand holster so that the wand would sit against my left hip, easier to grab with my right hand that way. I pulled on a blue-black tweed sport jacket to cover the wand. I ran a comb through my hair and decided that I looked as good as I was going to, and walked back into the kitchen. As I glanced at the center island, I noticed the look of anticipation on Vuk's face. Vuk? He asked eagerly. The backpack that he rides in was already laid open on the counter. It's a strange piece of accoutrement, basically a bottomless backpack. The spells that I have laid upon it allow it to hold much more than appearances would indicate. Inside, Vuk has a king-size bed, a dresser, a dining table, and a safe that only he knows the combination to. When I asked him what he keeps in it, he shrugged, said, "Vuk," with a bland expression on his face, and walked away. I told you, he only said it the one word. He's my best friend, and I never go anywhere without him. I can't really, it's part of the spell. I can't be more than 100 yards away from him without feeling a sense of longing and dread. I should have gotten a Shih Tzu. But I can't complain really. Vuk is awesome company, and I get a lot of side benefits from our bond. I can see through his eyes and hear through his ears. It takes a bit of concentration, but it has come in handy on several occasions. In addition, he's kind of a mental battery, and when I've been in tough situations and my mana has been running low, I've been able to draw upon his. Lastly, his presence makes me a little tougher, harder to kill. The piece of life force that I invested in him has grown to fill him, and in a crisis, I can draw upon it to sustain myself. I gave him a smile. He already knew he was going with me, but it's a little game that we play once in a while. He climbed into the backpack. From inside the bag, his tiny hand grabbed the zipper and pulled it closed. There are normal pockets on the outside that I use for things like my sunglasses and Blistex. Hey, in Minnesota, everyone uses Blistex. I slipped the strap over my shoulder and headed to the garage. This far into October, it was too cold to ride the Triumph, so I used my remote to unlock the Jeep. Some people ask, since my last name is Harley, why I ride a Triumph motorcycle. I usually reply that riding a hog would just be cliche.